Hey, hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Where's Your Heart? We are
Oh,
here
you got a
with.
coat in the whole bit
I know,
today?
I
he's a
do,
coat.
I do. I just put it on. I'm like, it's a little cold in here. It's a little cold, so I'm gonna put that on. You know, this is not a prop. This is not a costume. This is actually what it's like in the Chicagoland area. So, I want to welcome everybody to Where's Your Heart. It's gonna be warm today, obviously, because I have on a fake fur. Certainly isn't a fur. We have our
It is faux
for
fur.
a lot of different reasons. For a lot of different reasons. We have our amazing friends with us. We have the Royce and the real Teresa Robinson, and we just want to welcome all of you all to share the space where we champion vulnerability as a core human strength. What is the good word, everyone?
Oh. Like,
I feel like that's what's going to happen over the next part. There's a lot of just deep breathing and
I think
And
that's the theme this week.
yeah,
the
breathe.
next 48 to 72 hours will be a very intense period in American
Absolutely.
history. That
Absolutely.
is a fact. That is a fact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
So
much so.
there's a lot of preparation. I'm sure that people can see. Some people are preparing in uh, more positive ways, some in more negative ways. I'm trying to, of course, keep the center with that, and it's
Yeah.
just interesting to hear the narrative around the why behind it and the justification behind it. So,
Huh.
try to listen and listen with a listening ear, but it's 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 awkward. It's awkward for me anyway.
Yeah, I think awkward is probably one of the challenging would be another. That would be another
Like,
word.
why are we beating around the bush? Like, this country's on the verge of some crazy shit, man. Let's just fucking call it what it is. Like, I don't know if I'm waking up
Because
Wednesday to
we gotta
civil
keep
war
we gotta
or
keep
like
the calm. We gotta keep the calm,
keep
even
the
though
calm. Like,
we know that it's gonna probably be a major dumpster fire over the next 70. But we gotta keep the calm.
like even if Biden wins, I'm scared shitless because I think white people go back to sleep and we go back to that like underground racist fucking country. I don't like
Oh,
I don't know, man. I just ugh, I don't know.
If anybody sleeps after 2020 and survives 2020 afterwards, I mean, it's
Mhm.
that is a real testament to how far we have not come as not only a society but just human beings. I mean, there's a lot I mean, this moment right now in the modern world is
Yeah.
it's once in a lifetime, if not multiple lifetimes. And so I really hope that people don't fall asleep for
Oh
whatever
yeah.
whatever
Nope.
triggers or whatever is rounding them up right now, and that we can find. My big thing is, how do we find a way in which we can really address things in a candorous way,
Yep.
and then move the needle so that we really are moving toward, at least here in the United States, that liberty and justice for all. I always go back to that because that's what we're trying to get to, right? So
exactly.
progress and innovation should not be an issue if this is what we want.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
gonna say that starts when it's a nice segue to heading into our gratitude and talking about what
What?
we're grateful for this week.
Look at you just like
Smooth. That was
in my head I
gotta
was
get
like,
this
all right,
down.
are we gonna get to Reddit? Like I was like when we don't have guests to organize ourselves around, we go like shit
Yeah.
goes goofy.
Well, I mean, honestly, when it comes down to it, I mean, over the next few days, I feel like that's kind of going to be a saving grace if we're able to still, wake up in the morning, look in the mirror, and just say what we're grateful for. It makes the day easier, and it's going to make that time easier. So,
All right, so
Okay.
here's I'll kick the gratitude off. There are
Yeah.
two comments already from Sarah and then Susan, and that's what I'm grateful for is people who have watched this show
it is killing me.
like since the beginning, and it like people who've watched this show since the beginning have been willing to come on. Susan had Torian and I talked to her class last week. Like Sarah's had us. She led us to a sermon. Like what the hell
Oh
was
man,
that?
that was something
Like
that was
that was
interesting.
a hoot. Um, but that's what I'm grateful for, is these relationships in the time, when we can't just walk out the door and hug our friends anymore.
Yeah.
These kinds of interactions become really, really important to our dopamine centers. And I
Yep.
think that's a lot of what's going on, is people aren't understanding how to hack their own brains on dopamine and shit, but how to find, to translate it, it's how to find satisfaction in these kinds of relationships, because we have to direct our brain to it. And so I'm deeply grateful for those folks showing up, and the folks that are always chiming in and asking really good questions on the show. That's my gratitude right now.
You know what? I love it. I'm jumping in only because my gratitude, and we didn't talk about this, right? We didn't talk about this. My gratitude is 100% aligned to exactly what you said, which is this. For me, it's around friends, but having friends that I hate to say don't require much, but don't require much. They show up, they listen. I mean, I have friends in my life, man, where it's just like, yeah, man, just come through, and we don't even have to be doing anything. I mean, I literally just may sit around just like I'm sitting around home and watch the NFL or whatever. But it's the fact that we can hold that space for each other, and so I appreciate that so much more now in 2020. Even though I appreciated it before, but just really being able to sit in it and have those conversations. And if you can share that space, even if it is digital space, to do it in a way that is connecting, it's an opportunity. So I'm very, very grateful for that. And shout out to those friends that I have who, hopefully I'm as good of a friend to you that you are to me.
Mm.
Yeah.
See, I guess I got to jump on the friendship train too. But mine is more of a sense of the friends that do expect more from me, because of the fact that I feel like accountability is a big thing. And I mean, for instance, when all of this COVID stuff started, me being the hustler that I am, hearing that things were going to shut down, I'm just saying, well, no, I mean, I'm sure there's still a way I can make having any large event work, right? I mean, we just, it might not be as bad as we think it is. And I'm watching as venues shut down, movie theaters shut down. Literally, my income went to half in a span of one day. And so the first 3 months, I found myself that, I fought that first month, and then the second month happened. I was like, okay, well, I'll just look at this as a vacation. And then before I knew it, 3 months was just spent in bed. And it got to a point, like my best friend M.
I'm a potato.
Yeah, my best friend was like, you have got to get up, and you've got to figure, like, you cannot, this cannot be your thing, because this is not you. This is not you. This is not how you do things. So, I have to say thank you to friends for accountability, because anyone that has experience that can easily slip back into it. So I'm glad that I have friends, and I've centered myself around people that will be there to say, get your ass out of bed. You got shit to do. And we have no time for you to be a couch potato. Like, you got stuff to do. So let's get with it.
Well, I think that's the toughest part, is like knowing when your friend needs what, and how to, and when I've got it to give, because sometimes I ain't got it to give, man, and that's got to be okay too.
I understand that one. I do. Yeah. I do. It's amazing how, kind of making a transition, but not really, but what I'm realizing now, like the premium in life, the currency in life right now is attention. It really is attention. I mean, it could be, social media. Well, it is social media, obviously.
And there is literally the currency.
Oh, yeah.
Literally. Well, but I mean, but that's a part of it, right? I mean, even from text messages, I took email off of my phone, and just email notifications, like the dings, the Pavlov signals that you receive on a large basis. It's like, I don't want to receive that a lot. So for me, I made it a point to disconnect from a few nouns, and it's helping me, but I don't know how it's landing with people, places, and certain things.
Well, Janine just shot a message out there. Apparently it's landing okay.
There you go.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah. Yeah,
Sarah
yeah.
says, by your definition, then she's rich. You know what though? I want to flip that because
Yeah.
I don't actually want it to translate to real money. I want it to fucking matter in the world the way money does. Like that's what I want. Like, we were talking about everyone. I'm a gamer. I'm playing Star Wars: The Old Republic because COVID. Deal with it. And I gotta have my steady eddies, and that's the SWOTAR and WoW, man. They're always there. I'll go play other games, but I always come back to my steadies. But I was talking with a couple of my friends about it in SWOTAR when the romance options, and it's always transactional. Everything has to be transactional, and part of that's just like the way these systems are built, that to build relationship in them you have to push the right buttons. But it unfortunately is too much like it's actually a reflection also of the way we think about relationship. Well, I got to make deposits in my bank with Teresa today, that kind of and there's a truth behind it in that relationship is a muscle. It has to be exercised, right? But it's also like it's so much more than that too. And if all I'm doing is keeping a fucking ledger, then it's not a relationship. It's just a ledger.
I think we're gonna change the whole premise of today's show if we go into this. But no, think about because I'm thinking about a lot of questions, and it does tie into what we were talking about, or what I was talking about with gratitude. But when in a relationship is a person not counting, hey, what am I getting from this? And I'm not saying like frontal lobe 1, 2, 3, 4, but most people are not going, nor I think they should. If you're in something where you feel drained all the time, or it becomes, boy, here's something that I have to do. This is something that's on my list, and it's habitually on my list. I don't know if I would want to be in that type of relationship.
Yep. No, and because there are decision points too. And then how do you enlist the other person in that discernment process of, what are we doing here? Or is it worth that? Or does that the door to a conversation of, my friend had cancer and didn't even fucking tell anybody, like there's all of this out there, but it all starts with authenticity, with authenticity in relationship, all those things. And Sarah's note about like what's happening for her group over on TikTok, like they started a hashtag, these 30 progressive clergy, and it's a 40 million hit hashtag now. Like, there's crazy cool shit going on. And that is very transactional. Again, like who pushed the like button? You know what I mean? Right. So
excuse me, I was going to cut off. Teresa. Well, I was going to say, I have to agree with you in the sense of, I like how you talk about, depositing that time. But I guess it is something to keep a track on because, as I've experienced when I had to make the decision to start creating a circle of friends that was what I was looking for. Part of that was keeping track of what these friends are doing for me. And if it turns out that I was putting in the energy more than the other person, because friendship's a two-way street. You can't put in all the energy and the other person's just like, oh, thank you, and then go away.
There's sometimes when I can. Bluntly, I've got a friend of mine who's dying of cancer right now. And I'm totally okay knowing that is a deposit-only relationship right now. Yeah. Except that, what happens when we have those authentic conversations? I still walk away changed because of his presence in my life.
I think you hit the nail on the head is the fact that you're having conversations. If if you didn't know they had cancer, that's a problem. True. So it's like you're going to have those moments that those conversations aren't had on a regular basis. But if you have the friendships you do, even if you don't talk for a couple of months, when you come back in there, it will feel just like you haven't, that you have been talking, you just took a break. So, I think that's what it comes down to is, as long as you're having that communication going, you will always have that connection, that friendship. It will always continue.
So how does this, and we're completely off topic, this has nothing to do with power and policy, but it can though. No, it's okay though.
It does.
It does.
I would argue it does.
It does.
Because again, because again, power without relationship is oppression.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, again, like and we replicate this shit. This is where these policies have very real effects on how we perceive power, and it runs throughout our lives. It runs in our homes, how we operate in our homes, whether how do we treat our children, how do our children treat us, like all of these things have very real side effects.
You probably have to guess. It's gonna be transition time.
Oh, it's transition time.
I'm sure this will lead into last week. Now, probably stuff that's happened last week that refers to this.
Last week now, I like that. Listen, upping the program game. That's all I'm saying.
That's what this season is about. Like, there's going to be a ton of changes, audience. Just
Absolutely.
So you know, we have a ton of changes coming, but it's good. It's going to be good. It's going to be okay. Including boof. Oh yeah, Janine. Yep.
Let's look at what Janine has.
I mean, that's the definition of tyranny. I think it's power without relationship. Power is just simply something that exists because we're human animals. We are social animals, and therefore what I say or do affects everyone around me. Even if they aren't in relationship with me, they're affected by it. That's what it means to be a social animal. And so that's power.
So I don't know if this actually if this connects, but I have to bring up something. It's funny because essentially it was last week.
Oh, go.
Even though it literally was 2 days ago, but it was last week. So we all have probably heard that Sean Connery has passed.
Yep.
And I was, I watched him. The man was cool. Like, he was the coolest Bond. And I just truly respected the fact that as an actor, he had a Scottish accent. He wasn't going to care. He ain't give a damn. It didn't matter what role it was. If he had to play an Irish cop, he was like, nope. I'm not playing an Irish cop. I'm going to play
this
this
is
guy.
how it sounds.
Exactly. Irish is now Scottish. That's just how it is. But bringing up, just thinking about, what you say and how it affects somebody really made me think about what I was witnessing this morning. Those who love Sean Connery for his art probably also know that Sean Connery was a very old-fashioned thinker and misogynistic.
Yeah.
So
that's my troubled relationship with
him. So it was like 2 days after the man dies, People Magazine, Entertainment Weekly, all these places are bringing up his, past interviews. One in particular where they asked a question of, is it ever okay to hit a woman?
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I didn't see
it
this.
was, yeah. So, and it's funny, I've actually had conversations like this. And funny enough, there are some women that feel that if they are the aggressor, if they are the one that actually is physically doing something to a man, that at that point, they pretty much open themselves up to whatever consequence comes out of that if they're the one physically doing it. Then there's people that are just like, no, you never hit a woman. That just never happens. So it became a very interesting topic when I talked about it. But I just found it interesting. The majority of the people on the Facebook post were really upset that even came up. It was, they were just like, yes, we're aware of who he was. Can we just take a beat? And it's not new. They did it with Kobe. They've done it with a lot of celebrities that unfortunately had moments, and now that's what they're going to be remembered for, even when they died. So I admit he popped a few.
Wow.
Yeah, see?
You need a fun one today. Shout out to Janine Rogers.
Just laying it out there.
I mean, seriously.
So just bringing up how you talked about that, even with the friendship, when you're trying to, kick them in the ass to get them moving. I mean, when do you know when to stay quiet and when do you know to say something?
And bluntly, you don't. But you're willing to be vulnerable enough to risk it in the situation to be wrong. and to be like, oh shit, I totally overstepped. Torian, I'm so sorry. What do you need? And to always circle back to that.
Yep.
Because it goes back to what human being has not had multiple moments in that way, shown up in that way, said something they didn't really mean, said something because they were triggered from a trigger that they didn't even know that they had. I mean,
I'm never
that's
triggered.
what we're. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, yeah. Well,
I was like, okay, that's what you believe, bro. All right. Got something I need you to watch. Oh man!
All right, there you
go. No, but we all have those moments, and again, it doesn't mean that we don't acknowledge them and we don't talk about them. But I don't think that people should be judged on their worst moments. All of us have some Michael Jackson Thriller skeletons in their closet. Like every human being.
That was not the skeleton. That was the werewolf.
Okay. But you know what I mean, right?
Remember this shit. Coming out. I saw 2 videos in the 80s, man. I didn't have MTV. I didn't even have a fucking TV most of that decade. But I remember that video.
He's like, that was a werewolf.
I think everybody, almost, if you had access to anything that transmitted via TV on this planet, that video. Because Mike had that kind of energy and production and everything, his talent. But no, I mean, and I'm not saying it has to be a bad or derogatory, but just things and moments that they would be like, wow, you know what? If I could, I would do this completely different. And maybe that isn't, the case with Sean Connery. I actually loved his, not even as much as acting, just his persona. Like he just, he seemed interesting, right? And the roles that he took were interesting. And so for me, I always enjoyed seeing him in his person, still kind of being that same person in every role. So it kind of goes back to what Royce was talking about, which is, just being able to show up in a consistent way. But I also think that we all have these moments, man. So let's find a little bit of ourselves if we can.
Yeah.
When we're judging other people. That's all. That's all.
And I think there's 2 things there for me though. We need more space for people to be people. Also, when you fuck up, you gotta admit it.
You gotta admit it. I messed up.
That's something that sometimes I don't see. But it also, like when we talk about this binary, I'm hearing a binary here. People are either good or evil. These celebrities are either good or evil, and there's no space for a genuinely authentic lived life between those things. So, and this, by the way, again, ties back to power and policy of like our system is very binary in this country. That's
really
a little bit.
Binary? Tell me more.
I'm still haunted by G's comment at the end of our show last week. Like, look, y'all, you keep talking about black and white. Most of us live in the middle, and I'm like, oh shit, she's right. Like, we totally ignored that angle today.
But and I was going to ask you, give me some examples of things being binary right now. But I think that's every single context to what we see and what we have. Actually, I'm not going to throw the people or the group under the bus when I say this, but I was talking to a group of
Can I?
You don't know him.
Oh, okay,
and
that's good.
No, this is a specific example. And long story short, for Halloween, people were giving out candy that had support Trump and support Biden, Harris, and like they had politically charged candy for children.
Nope.
And it was, I'm like, I can't believe this. Like I'm flashing back to my moments of Halloween, and I don't ever remember connecting Halloween to politics in my life. So that was interesting for me last week. And to be quite candid with you, I'm so happy with last week because it's the last full week of this whole election because I can't wait for it to be over. Regardless of who wins.
It's not going to be over. Like that. What terrifies me is honestly that it's not going to be over. Biden wins. Just run that scenario. Biden wins. Trump and all his white supremacists go underground again, and they strengthen. This is what Hitler did in the 1920s. He was originally rose to power in the Socialist Party. He was deposed because he was a fuckbag, and everyone saw it. But then he built his coalition behind the scenes, so that the next time the fucking economy went south, he steps in, and he's then got the impetus. And that's what we've seen, is this crazy impetus over the last 4 years of these people aren't fucking going away. And that's what terrifies. And in the meantime, we got, like, America's going to go back to sleep because that's what we do. I come back to Coates's dream. Between the World and Me, he talks about whiteness being a dream, and I think he nails it. And it's not just white people; it's whiteness.
I'm really hoping America doesn't fall asleep. I mean, I will admit, I feel Trump did give open people who wanted to be openly racist a platform. Yep. It's like they felt that, shoot, we have that person that is like, yeah, I mean, even my brother was like, I'd rather have him do it to my face than do it, hiding it behind my back. So I feel that might be a pushback. That's the thing that I feel is going to go to sleep. But I'm really hoping that America doesn't go to sleep. Susan again. They're not. Susan makes me laugh.
I don't know, man. There's one puppeteer in the White House staff that I do think there's a couple of them in there that are smart enough, and that's part of what terrifies me. Is those guys are architects. They knew exactly what they were doing.
Well, before we get further down, I think that's going to lead into this week's topic. So that is what we're going to focus on right now.
Look at that.
Yes. So go ahead and start focusing on this week's topic of power and policy.
Doing it.
Power and policy, production value. Thank you, Teresa.
You are welcome. That's my job.
I would say production support.
No, value. See how clean the screen looks right now? You see how smooth that transition was? Torian was not holding it down like that. I fully admit that. I did the best I could. I gave all that I had, ladies and gentlemen.
I got to applaud you because after doing it for 2 weeks, I still don't know how you did it for that long. So I know we talked about that really for this topic. We were going to do our best to, kind of stay centered and really not make it focused on the candidates, because at this point, it's not going to, it's not going to change. People voted for who they voted for.
Especially because, like, in Texas hit this last, what was it, Wednesday or Thursday? Hit the point where the pre-election voting, early voting numbers passed the total number of votes in 2016.
Wow.
So let's be really clear. Sorry, this should have been under the last one, but anyway, when we talk about the power of this cycle and what's happening here and people's desire for something to happen, it's high. Like, this is massive. We are seeing record-breaking turnouts all across the country. So something is happening. That's really cool. That's amazing.
Well, the
and we have a
thing
full
is we don't
on Halloween.
Yep.
I'm sorry. I'm putting a little levity in it right now because I know we're gonna get heated with this. But here's the thing, Royce. This is the thing, bro. What major seismic shift has happened without friction?
Nothing. And I would add pain, because the human animal does not change unless the perception of the pain of change is lower than the pain of my current situation.
But then you got to wonder, what's the change? I mean,
that's what concerns me.
Looking at it this way, when it comes to elections, the focus of the message is always change. They're going to make something different for me. Something's going to happen that's going to help me. That's usually what it is. So my fear right now is that those big numbers, those big turnouts, we don't know if it's a big turnout for replacing what we currently have in place to start something new, or if it's people that are like, no, the change is happening, we need to continue the change. That's the frightening thing for me, is because I feel that I've been so happy to see more people standing up and saying, I have had enough. I'm done. We need to start making some real changes in our government and all of our different systems. This needs to happen.
But I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Go on,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Our past 3 elections have been because of that feeling. It's been, I mean, regardless of your candidate or who you voted for, it is an undergirth of this is not working for a majority of people, and a lot of people are feeling it. So now it's becoming polarizing. Go ahead.
Well, and that's what frustrates me is that exactly what you just said. The last 3 presidential cycles, so we're looking at 12 years, and yeah, Susan's calling it right there. Like COVID managed to grease the wheels toward more early voting, not just an impetus to do more early voting, but also legally allowing it more early voting. So there's some interesting things going on there. But Torian, I think you're nailing something really important, that we've been screaming for this for 12 years. We had this potentially seismic shift that I will point at the Democrats and say, y'all still fucked this up, because during your 2 years when you had president, House, and Senate majorities, you didn't get shit done. You did not get shit done because you were too busy trying to hold a big tent for yourselves instead of getting shit done right. And we ended up with the ACA, the Affordable Care Act. And it was a step in the right direction, I guess, but it was more like the lowest common denominator of shit, because they were still trying to play patty cake with too many people instead of heeding the call from all of us that says this has to change. And we're not talking about incremental change anymore, because failure to act, and the Democrats are just as guilty here, has led to the widening of the gap between rich and poor in this country. It's led to the widening of the gap between white people and the rest of the nation. It's led to a widening gap of problems for women in the workforce. Just what, September alone, 1 million jobs lost, 850,000 of them were women. And again, disproportionately women of color. We cannot sustain those kinds of losses. What's the number one rule if you're fucking king? Feed your goddamn peasants. And they're not doing it. And so, yeah, we've been screaming for change. It hasn't been happening. I don't have any hope of that we're going to address the prison system in this upcoming thing, because I think the Biden-Harris ticket's not going to unfuck that. But they goddamn well better get some shit done on health. Yeah, I know. And they profited from it. So, but they damn well better get healthcare unfucked. I think there's some constitutional changes that are going to have to be looked at, and money out of politics. It's got to end. We are having a multi-billion-dollar election cycle right now when we're saying that we can't afford to fucking make it so people don't get evicted during a goddamn pandemic. There's no fucking space for that shit. We are not a decent nation. We are a shitty nation. We are not a Christian nation. We are the worst scum of the earth right now because we have it. And instead of fixing shit, we're throwing it at politicians.
Yep, we knew this was going to get heated. We knew this was going to get heated. I know. I mean, I think that's the point.
Yeah, not triggered at all.
I'm just thinking about the fact that I'm surprised at the dialogue going on that we've defeated COVID, but there's still cases. Like I don't even know how that became a thing. I'm just like, really?
Anything to distract.
Oh my gosh, it's just, I mean, I really. But Royce isn't triggered.
Exactly, Janine. Exactly.
But I mean, it's amazing. I've come to the conclusion, and it doesn't matter if it's Democrat or Republican. I feel like they think very little of the American people. I feel like they are just hoping we don't research. We don't really look into what they're saying. We don't, it's just like, well, we like what they're saying. And since they said it, we're just going to follow it. And what I would like to see after this election for me is that we do more instead of just being sheep and listening to who has the best soundbite. That it's like, they're talking about tax reform. Okay, let's look and read what that is. Even though I tried and I'm like, what the hell does this mean? I understand, I'm not the greatest at math, but I feel like this week, just looking at like Biden's plan and all, like any plan, I'm just like, I don't get it. How is this really going to affect me? And that's a problem for the American citizen. They should be able to look at a plan, any plan of any any person who's running for office and know exactly what they're saying. It
Or there
shouldn't
should
be
at
legal
least
speak.
or there should at least be forums where we get to ask questions about it and try to come to that understanding.
Exactly.
Like, fuck debates. I'd love to see like actual like explanation of policy with questions about that policy. Like, I'd love to see a conversation like that. And yeah, Sarah knows several legislators. Now, these are often local legislators, which
I feel on the local level, there's a lot more, and I can only say some. I can only
and
say
there's
some.
relationship.
Yeah, yeah. I
But
feel like on the local level, you're going to have more people that are going to be more caring. The higher you go up in power, it seems like that seems to be forgotten.
But this is where we as a community, as people, as citizens, are being lulled to sleep, and we're opting into it. So this is where the conversation around attention, social media,
Yep.
where our attention goes. Do we understand what's happening locally? Do we know our local politicians and the local policy? I mean, I actually have a degree in public policy. When I was in China, I have a master's in public administration and economics and public policy. And it was interesting for me because I always tried to tie policy into industry and how industries boomed. And it's always a connection to
always
a policy, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's the Rockefellers, the Vanderbilts, or any oligarch that you may be talking about over in another country or in Russia, something like that.
Yeah.
So there is a connection, especially at the highest level of an organization. But we also have to understand something too. One, we want to make sure that we are in a mindset to be empowered, but we also have to understand that power's number one priority in every situation is to stay in power. I don't care what's being sold, what they're telling you. If there's something, that's their number one priority. And two,
that has to be accounted for then.
That has to be accounted for. And two, assist power will never, ever give you the education and tools that you need to overthrow it. That's not going to happen. So individually,
which is why education has to be dealt with in this country.
Exactly.
Exactly. But we're talking about education from a systematic standpoint. I'm talking about education from hey, how can I learn with where I am locally, based on community, based on version of family or connection that people actually have. That's what I'm talking about. What's best for the direction we are trying to go as a city, as a region, as a neighborhood. I mean, you can get that granular and it grows out. And that's one of the things that I think that we really want to try to think about and focus on as the populace of the country, because you're absolutely right. I actually think what's happening is most people are in the gray area. They are in the middle. But because we are in this friction point that people are just grabbing onto that which feels familiar to them, which they understand, and what's easy to say, oh, I'm this. If you ask a BLM or a MAGA person in general, standard deviation in general, in the middle, to talk deep about policies that will actually affect them in a local way, a lot of people, I don't care what your level of formal education is, can't have a conversation around that. And we need to be better informed around it. We need to understand that. We do.
And that's why I come back to formal education. I mean, formal education, why our public schools have to be fixed. We have spent too long believing that crime and punishment is the biggest problem our society has to solve, when 100% of the issues behind crime and punishment are better dealt with more expediently, with good education and with formative education, with education that understands we are people, not machines that just simply have information dumped into them. I mean, to your point, Torian, of like policy being linked to actual economic shift, I saw for the first time in my life, I read an article, it was within the last month, I think it might have been within the last 2 weeks, where the articulation from, and I don't remember all the details, but the articulation from, it was a source that I trusted, said solar power finally had the, it finally had the potential, it was finally quote unquote cheaper than gas powered things. Now there's a lot of threads there, right? Including the price
Right.
of oil, which can rise and fall. And when oil's high, well, of course, solar looks better. So there's a lot of little things here. But I also cannot help but point directly to the economic stimulus and infrastructure building that went on for 10 years, 8 years, where we deliberately invested through tax credits and things like that in solar infrastructure. That there's policy at play, and that's a long-term shift. This is not the kind of thing that most people track, but it's absolutely the kind of thing that matters, because our entire industry in this country is completely fucking outdated because of exactly what you also said about people holding on to power. They don't want to shift away from oil. So that, and yet the biggest potential growth, the place where America could reinvent itself, is around renewable power. Like if we were to just completely fucking abandon oil and coal and go for all renewable power within the next 20 years, come on, is that really that much harder than going to the fucking moon?
When people have the conversations about that, is there a need to? I'm actually quoting a friend of mine. He went off on the whole thing of like, well, I mean, what about the cars? What's going to happen with cars? I mean, people that have feminine, are we just going to just be like, oh, well, screw those cars. We don't have gas anymore. Let's just focus all on renewable energy. And I'm just like, why not just focus a little to start? Like that I haven't even seen that really has been a focus just to start, just to say, okay, we're going to invest this much in this. All I've heard is that anybody that brings it up, it automatically just wants to get shut down. It's like, no, we're not providing money for that.
That's because whataboutism is about shutting down the conversation of change. It's sabotage. And I'm not going to engage it. I won't justify it, because I know how many items in my home right now would not exist without that space program in the 60s, when a president had the guts to stand up and say, we're fucking doing something cool. We're going there.
Yep.
Now, it was also militarily involved. There's a bunch of other shit behind that. So let's be real clear. But you know what? I just read an article about a technology being developed here in Albuquerque where it's fucking stickers, solar stickers that they stick on a thing. Yeah. It's flexible sticker shit that they're putting on satellites. Again, it's being developed by the military, but the applications here, like in those of us outside the military, is massive.
It's real. Yeah. I mean, look at the internet. Come on. I mean, so think about how many things are actually developed with power in mind, or within the intent of continued power being extended. I agree with you. I do think that when we start to think about power and policy, though, I think how we make sure that we don't jump back to an area or a time where people were kind of lulled to sleep is we have to be a little bit more measurable on like how are we defining success. And we've had conversations around this on the show a little bit when we talked about BLM, we talked about what is blackness, what is whiteness, like how are we defining the direction that we want to go and what makes it look successful? Because when we do talk about change, we also have to realize and recognize that change doesn't come, it's not something that really happens abruptly. You do have inflection points at times, for sure. You do have tipping points that are a little bit angled, a little sharper, but it's usually a gradual thing. It's usually something where you do have skunk works. Then you have, hey, let's set this out a little bit. Let's see how this works here. So being more intentional around that is what I want to see, so we can start to make a little bit more gradual change. We don't have to stay here.
We don't have to do it through the military. We could most of these major leaps forward, the times when the inflection points happen, they come out of our university systems, but they get bought up immediately because we allow it. They get bought up by corporations and by military institutions. So just by investing actual money, actual public money in our university systems, or changing our university systems so they aren't so fucking white and male, we end up in a situation where we actually can move shit forward, and not just for the profit of a few organizations. This is the type of infrastructure change that requires policy. It requires fundamentally different policy.
So I have to ask. It seems to me, at least this is what I remember, when it comes to everybody's kind of up in arms when it comes to the term of raising taxes. They just lose their crap. I mean, my understanding is that one of the purposes of doing that is so all the stuff we're talking about right now could be implemented. That we
You don't
are
even
in a
have to
sense of
raise
estimate.
taxes. Just cut the
Yeah.
fucking military budget and put it somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure really when it comes down to if they really got in there and, balance the books like, us normal people. Like, if they really started looking at what they're spending money on and then we're just like, it honestly reminds me of the movie Dave. I know, I was like, it's the only thing I have to compare. If you've ever seen Dave, it's an amazing movie. I suggest if you haven't seen it, go watch it. But there is actually a scene where the main character, who's played by Kevin Kline, brings in his friend, who's his accountant, to look at the books for the White House to see what they're spending, because he's responsible to, find $40 million in the budget to keep a program for children. And he brought his friend in, and his friend even said, "This is amazing. Like, if I kept my books like this, I would be in jail, right?" And I'm just like, "Yeah." So, I mean, I feel like that's gonna have to be one of those things. But I mean, I had conversations with, people on Facebook this week that just asking basic questions. What's the average amount Americans bring in with income and then expenses, and why is it when you hear the words raising taxes, for me, if I was making over $400,000, if I was like a millionaire, I just don't even understand why it would be an issue of me paying more taxes, because I feel like there should not be any reason if there's a person who's in the middle class bracket paying more than what a millionaire's paying. That doesn't sound right to me.
No, there's no excuse for it, except that those are the people with influence, and those are the people who get to write the rules.
And I feel like we're still playing that whole trickle-down economics crap that's already been proven doesn't work. So I just find it interesting that some people a lot of people still freak out about that option.
Yeah. And Angela's right. There is I'm not suggesting that there aren't problems in public sector higher ed. There's massive problems. Also, though, there's plenty of waste in our corporations too. Every time I hear about government waste, I'm like, and you know what? I've been a part of too many businesses where I was like, yeah, there's a lot of fucking waste here too. So it's just, for me, it's a question of where would I rather, organizations would I rather have in charge of these things? Mm-hmm. I'd rather have one where the reform is policy that we do and we engage with, and therefore it shifts for certain things. For example, education. It's just too important because of exactly what Torian said, which is who's like those in power. It's to their benefit to not have us be educated. Something revolutionary happened in this country, and I still don't know why they allowed it when they decided public education was what was needed. But it's been co-opted, and we have to unfuck that. And it's a massive unfucking that needs to be done.
When you find out how much administrators get paid over.
Oh God.
Oh wow. I have a friend who's on the school board. It was her first, it was the first few months of her being there. And at that time, I was scared. With the changes that were happening, there was a possibility our youngest son Frederick was going to lose the ability. He has learning disabilities, and so he's in special education classes, and that was like one of the first things they were going to cut funding for. Yeah. And I'm just like, why? And especially with her, she started looking at what they were spending money on, and she's just like, this is ridiculous. Like, why are you even looking at cutting at the things that are needed instead of at the top? And I still think they haven't even cut administrative budgets when it comes to education.
Here in APS, they did make some cuts, but it's not being handled meaningfully. Angela, I get where you're coming from. Wasn't suggesting that it. Anyway, you're nailing it. And also I'm not opposed to new taxes. a low tax rate in this country, and it shows in our infrastructure. Again, there's a direct relationship between policy and power in these things. And I can't look at our crumbling infrastructure and think, well, no relationship to our policies. There absolutely are.
Well, absolutely. No, 100%. But here's the question, and I'm listening to you all speak and just kind of thinking. So where have we seen power and policy play well together? Because I can't think of anything. I was thinking as
you know where?
Like, what? Yeah.
You shared this with me. I didn't know about this, but the Florida State University Seminoles.
The relationship between the Seminole tribe and the university.
Yes.
Okay.
And that is an example of responsible policy, like good policy, because you have this university that wants to use and they don't call it a mascot, and it's a, oh God, what are they? I can't remember but I checked their website out after we had that conversation. I was just amazed at like how they discuss it publicly too. Again, that may not be a total reflection of everybody's experience. I doubt it is. But just to have the public facing thing saying, this is not our mascot. These are our partners, right. And so it's the tribe that decides how they are represented on campus. They're the ones that come up with the art. They are the ones that choose the art. They're the ones that will come and hold sacred events on our campus grounds to share their culture with the larger student body. They're the ones that have scholarships to come to this school and be a part of this school and remind people that this matters. Like, that's policy that works.
Gotcha.
Has it always worked? It's problematic. I'm sure it's still problematic and all that. I'm not saying it's perfect, but I can take this version of imperfection. And when you've got a tribe that is still on board with that kind of a situation, that's pretty fucking special. So there's my first answer. You guys what do you come up with?
I've been thinking. I promise you, I am thinking right now. Like, that's a great example. I haven't, and I don't think they're necessarily negative. So what's up?
Well, okay. Here's another example. Some of the New Deal stuff back in the 30s. When we kind of examine those, and again, there's problems all throughout it. But one of the things FDR did right was he would build these, and I can't remember the guy's name. He had an administrator that he kept hopping from department to department, and he would like put this guy in. They would build out a department for a project, and then they would kill the fucking department, and then they would start a new one for the next thing. And again, it was good policy because it didn't allow sure, there was a lot of transfer over of people, but it didn't allow the departments to become power hungry to the point that they took over those budgets and those kinds of things. So it's another example. And that was also really important to break the back of the Great Depression. Right. Like there had to be drastic action at that point. So, I mean, I think there's examples out there, but yeah, the white boy's been babbling too much. Y'all got to shut me up.
I was thinking about the whole, now that I really looked into it, Torian and Royce, we talked about it last week, the Ice Cube thing, with his contract.
Yeah.
I actually looked into the contract, and had to investigate a little bit more because, strangely enough, I had a conversation with my brother. He found a TikTok of a guy, Will Wallace, I believe it was, and
William Wallace.
And it turns out that this guy did a TikTok about the Platinum Plan, and my brother was just like, "Is this true?" And I was just like, "It is. It is true that this Platinum Plan exists." Unfortunately, I'm going to have to bring up one of the candidates in order to discuss this. President Trump's people has come up with this Platinum Plan that is essentially, I would say, a wish list for the African American community. So making Juneteenth a national holiday, making it that blacks are making as much as their white counterpart. It's a great list. It's a great list. I explained to my brother that yes, it is true. It's not. I mean, it's nothing that's hidden. You can look it up. My question with that is, why are we waiting until after the election for that to get implemented?
Because we're too busy confirming a fuck nugget for the Supreme Court.
Obviously. So that was what I had to point out to my brother, because this person who did this TikTok was making out like this is a reason why we should vote for him. I was like, it would have been more of a reason if he implemented that now. Him sitting on it as a political ploy, not cool. But I also found it interesting that I found out he took some of Ice Cube's ideas that were in the contract that he presented and stuck it in the in the platinum plan. And I was like, and I'm sure, no doubt, he'll take credit for that as well. But I would like to see it. I would like to see something like that implemented. I'm just wondering if there's going to ever be the right partner so that there is that positive power and policy, like the examples you gave. Like, will there ever be a candidate? Will there ever be a person that will make that happen?
So the conservative side of me says that it sounds very disempowering in how we're talking about it. Like, why does it have to come from probably one of the smaller offices out of the three branches that we have? It's going to trickle down, when we're saying that trickling down from a policy standpoint, an economic policy standpoint, didn't work during certain years. I guess it was in the 80s when they were talking about trickle down economics. I think that there has to be, or I believe and think that there has to be kind of a sandwiching of the two. I do think that we need to address them at the highest levels of our government. I'm not saying that we don't, but I also have to argue just as strongly that we have to find local ways, getting back to understanding local policy and how that connects to our economics, in which in the Black community, in any oppressed community, marginalized community, where we are creating ways to say, how do we localize this and make it relevant to us and how we want to show up and how we want to live, and then how do we better co-create that with, going back to Sean and our past guests that we had, in becoming better neighbors to each other. There has to be a sandwiching of those two, and I think the gray area that people live in is the gray area we're going to have to build and bring those two things together over time.
No, it does, because it like the local stuff, it becomes irrelevant very quickly if our rights are not being actually protected nationally. Yeah. And right now they're not, because everything that we have as shit. Yeah, it's time.
Yeah, sorry, guys.
It looks so nice. I love it. I'm like,
she's good. But it's like every time all of our rights. So after was it the 13th Amendment or 14th? They passed at the same time, but I think it was the 14th Amendment. In the years following that amendment, I can't remember the time frame. It was like a 20 or 30 year process. Like 120 challenges or 120 issues under that law were brought forward, and that was the one meant to establish individual rights, right? But of those 120 court cases that had to do with it, and I'm going off memory here. I should get my professor. We should get my professor on the show. She fucking nails this shit. All but like 6 of them were brought by corporations. All but 6 of them were brought by corporations. And so what we have there is the 6 that were not corporations, that were brought by individuals, only 2 passed. So the number of times that the corporate power was increased because of what was going on off of an amendment that was supposed to be for people, it ends up being something that just benefits corporations. That is a basic functionality that has to completely get disassembled. Corporations are not fucking people. They don't have our rights. They cannot be treated the same. And until we unfuck that, and that's a policy thing at the national level, I don't see anything else mattering. Like this has been the same since the beginning of this country. The Bill of Rights has been abused by corporations. It was written for corporations. Well, at the time, they weren't necessarily corporations. They were the white wealthy landowners. But anyway, all right, Sal, I got to push back on this one, because Elon Musk,
Okay.
like I wanted to admire this guy, and then his fucking bullshit during COVID has driven me nuts. He's become a real shitbird on that topic.
So wait, but let's circle it back to what we said though,
All
right?
right,
We
all right.
talked about
Yeah.
Sean Connery. We said people is
I
the whole
know.
experience, right? So here's my thing. Even with the whole political polarization and stuff, it's like people are not talking to people that they've known their whole life because they're hanging signs outside of their house and stuff like that.
True.
Like I just at some point it's like, man, we have to follow our own advice, even when it's really, really difficult. And I'm not trying to give you,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to poke you with this a little bit, but I'm saying even with Elon Musk, like everybody's trying to figure this stuff out. So when I think about more, better, different, especially after tomorrow, because I can't wait till we get past this day. Like whatever's gonna happen.
This
That's
shit
right.
ain't
Whatever.
gonna be done for a month, man. This is
Well,
going to
yeah,
the Supreme
but that's
Court.
like that main component of the election
show.
will be done and over
I
with.
call
I know
it the
we still
show.
got to club, but yeah,
The
the
show.
show.
It's the show.
All
The
right.
show.
It's the show. It's the show. It's
true.
the show.
It's true.
It's the show. So once the show is over, like let's go back. I just want people to stay engaged, stay understanding their local policy, stay engaged on the local level. I don't care what side, up, down, left, right, in the middle, underground, above ground that you're on. Just continue to do that. Continue listening to each other and understand, because this is where, Royce, I go back to what you and I have talked about before, that your Second Amendment right, 13th Amendment, 14th Amendment, these are all amendments. We need a constitutional Congress. We need at the largest level of our country to come together and say, listen, we want to be the innovation so that we are the brighter beacon, not only of our planet, which we need to save intentionally, but of the multiverse that we're a part of, and we're going to lead this. So when you hear people talking about leadership, this is why I press on them like, okay, well, we have to celebrate our traditions, but we have to build upon them as well. So we have to make sure that we're doing that.
Written right into the Constitution is a method by which we, the people, without our legislators, without the executive branch, we, the people, can modify, can amend the Constitution. And yeah, it begins with us deciding, fuck those guys. We're going to hold our own constitutional Congress, and we're going to start figuring this out. It starts with big tent meetings. This is how we have to move forward. Because you're right. I don't, like, at this point, I don't hold any hope that they're going to like every time they do, I will celebrate it. But but you're right.
It seems like the more, better, different is just us doing more. Yeah. I think we definitely are started. What
happened?
She muted herself.
Just lost in the cage. Wait, help, I can't get out.
No, this is nuts because I've been amazed. Like in 2 weeks of
I don't know what that was. I don't know what that
Got
was.
it.
There it is.
Live.
Wrap us up, Teresa. Wrap us up.
As I was saying, I think because see, this is what happens when you are editing and doing live stuff at the same time. I just think that taking the initiative to do more. I mean, the going out and protesting has been great. Rallies have been great. That's terrific. But now, like you said, it shouldn't be focused on the national level making things happen. That's the part we need to make happen. We need to start educating. I mean, at this point, I may not know the intricacies of even starting initiatives, but all of this has made me think about things that I want to see change, especially here on the local level. Learning more about people that have, gone to prison and served their time and are supposed to be, given that second chance to continue their life, can't even vote. I would like to see that change. I would like to see more programs being implemented so that we're not just telling people of, people of color or African Americans, like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And then when they ask you how, there's no real answer. I want there to be a direction that can go that, interesting you asked, you should go here. So it has encouraged me to start looking at where those avenues are, and if they're not there, how I can help create them.
And LG is nailing what I think needs to happen, which is you two running for office. So anyway,
what?
There you go.
Wait. So wait, that's how you know we go back way.
No. You guys both run for office. That's it.
Listen, I told you I'm unelectable. I'm too much in the middle. Like, listen.
How do you know you're unelectable? Run for shit?
I haven't run. No, not.
All right, then don't give me this bullshit that you're unelectable.
But
That's
I mean,
not true. It's just not.
Well, when I listen to people speak, I'm like, yeah. I mean, because there's a middle ground. There's that gray area. So the way things are, well, okay. How about this? The way things feel right now, I feel as if I would be unelectable because they are so polarizing, and I'm not a polarizing person by nature.
And
so,
all it takes is somebody to stand in that gap and say no more. This is the way forward.
And that's what
That's
needs
all
to
it's
happen.
ever taken.
Plus, you would have like a badass like campaign poster to be like, I'm Torian.
Teresa, don't think you're getting off easy.
Listen, we gotta end this show. This is not.
You on the list too, my friend.
All right, gentlemen. We gotta wrap it up. We gotta wrap.
No,
I know. Right. I lost control of the show. I lost control.
So listen, we want to thank all of our listeners, our viewers. Please make sure that you share, that you like, and if you have any questions, reach out. We definitely want to build the show around our audience because we love you all so much, and we appreciate the support that you give us on a day-to-day basis, whether it's on the show or not, because we know it's a lot of family and friends and loved ones that are tuning in. So thank you all so much. Championing vulnerability as a human strength, and we will see you all next week.
Next Monday.
Keep breathing.
Yeah.